The following program is the work of the broadcast students at the British Columbia Institute of Technology. BCIT Magazine features news stories from around the Lower Mainland which were produced over the last week. Responsibility for the content of the show rests completely with the students and their instructors.
Today on BCIT Magazine, local demonstrations over the military action in Myanmar.
Police and protesters face off over Trans Mountain.
And federal gun legislation is targeting a growing sport. Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Angelina Ravelli.
And I'm James Parisi. Let's take a look at what's happening in our community.
Weekly demonstrations are being held across the Lower Mainland to show support for Myanmar's fight for democracy. Bianca Rego has more.
Vancouver's Burmese community lays a string of candles on the Vancouver seawall during one of many events. From vigils to protests, the Burmese community has been holding weekly demonstrations to shed light on the civil unrest in Myanmar.
We want democracy! We want democracy!
Firstly, we want to show support. We want to tell the world that we are with them in every step of the way, every step in this fight.
On February 1st, Myanmar's military violently overthrew the elected National League of Democracy. Ever since, thousands of people have peacefully taken to the streets to resist what one expert is calling an illegal takeover.
This power grab by the military is reminding them of the dark days of the 1990s and 2000s, when the military had crushed other uprisings, when it had put the country into isolation.
The military has been trying to suppress these demonstrations with water cannons, tear gas, and gunfire.
Vancouver's Burmese community is hoping to gain national attention by holding these demonstrations.
Their goal is to pressure the Canadian government to intervene and stop the violence that has already resulted in over 400 deaths.
Are also hoping the Canadian government finally does something rather than release statements. Hear our voices, hear the voices of people back home.
Until then, Vancouver's Burmese community will continue holding weekly demonstrations to show solidarity for those fighting and dying for democracy in Myanmar. Bianca Rego, Vancouver, BCIT Magazine.
Our reporter Bianca Rego joins us now with more. Bianca, how has the Canadian government responded to the situation in Myanmar?
Foreign Affairs Minister Marc Garneau has condemned the coup and stated that Canada stands with the people of Myanmar. The government has also issued sanctions against officials connected to the coup.
And how does the local Burmese community feel about those actions?
The community has expressed that the government is taking steps in the right direction, but they feel like there's more that could be done both in Canada and internationally. Back to you.
Thanks, Bianca.
An RCMP task force is under fire from Indigenous groups over its handling of the Trans Mountain pipeline demonstrations. Angelina Ravelli has the story.
Protest numbers rise as the Trans Mountain pipeline expansion project continues to go as planned. Overlooking those protests, a unique RCMP task force, the Community Industry Response Group, also known as CIRG. Many Indigenous demonstrators, such as Kanahes Manuel of the Tiny House Warriors, believe this is more than your typical enforcement group.
And their work is to monitor Indigenous land defenders. It's any resistance against the Coastal GasLink or the Trans Mountain Pipeline. We have so much rights and title to this land, yet we are being surveilled by police on a daily basis.
But this isn't the only group of Indigenous demonstrators accusing the RCMP of stalking.
For the past at least 2 days, they have been stalking and surveilling us. Yesterday, they drove past our home 22 times.
I spoke with Superintendent Deputy Criminal Operations Officer Dave Atfield. Atfield is the commander of the CIRG. He says the group's goals are far from what they're being accused of.
Recognize that we wanted to have, it's a small group, but it's something that kind of supports everybody with having a fairly consistent measured response to protest activity and safety security issues kind of all along the pipeline route, beginning with Trans Mountain at that time.
Atfield even says one of his senior officers for CERG is Indigenous as well.
My silver commander actually also happens to be in charge of the Indigenous Policing Services group. So they are, and he's Indigenous himself. So he had a lot of experience dealing with sort of, situations where there may be confrontation or conflict.
And while the TMX plans move forward, the demonstrators remain standing their ground. Atfield says the CERG will continue to be present at TMX protests. He also hopes to see a change in how the group is perceived. I'm Angelina Ravelli in Surrey for BCIT Magazine.
Coming up on BCIT Magazine, how the BC Hockey League is adapting during the pandemic.
And Airsoft players are fighting Bill C-21.
Welcome back to BCIT Magazine. After months of hard work and rejected proposals, junior hockey is back on the ice this spring. Reporter Lucas Chelly tells us what lies ahead.
A few weeks ago, the Surrey Eagles Junior A Hockey Club was going through practice, completely unsure of whether they would even play another game this year. Now, they have an answer. The BC Hockey League will have a shortened season, beginning in early April.
To get that return to play is going to be so huge to ensuring that we can get back to normal.
It won't be completely normal though, as teams will be separated into 5 different bubbles known as pods. 1 on the island, 2 in the lower mainland, and 2 in the interior. After a 14-day quarantine, teams will begin a jam-packed schedule against the other teams in their pod.
I've seen anywhere from 18 to 20 games potentially being crammed into like a 5 to 6 week period. So 3 or 4 games a week for each team.
The BCHL will be allowing each team to have a roster of 25 players in their bubble, giving them leeway for possible cases. For the Eagles, they won't be hosting any games here at South Surrey Arena. They'll be playing in Coquitlam at the Poirier Sports and Leisure Complex in early April. Having a season this year is especially important for the older junior players who are still vying for university scholarships.
It's huge. I've been fortunate enough to be talking to a couple NCAA schools, and pretty much the main message they all say is that they want to see me play a couple more games before they make a decision.
A safe return to play this year was vital to keep the BCHL afloat, and the league can't wait for the day when this can go back to this. Lucas Chelly in Surrey for BCIT Magazine.
Our reporter Lucas Chelly joins us with more. Lucas, it seems that the teams in the Coquitlam pod have changed locations. Where are they playing now?
That's right, James. The Coquitlam Express, Surrey Eagles, and Powell River Kings will not be playing at the Poirier Sports and Leisure Complex anymore. They'll be playing at the Scotia Barn in Burnaby.
So Lucas, how often are the players being tested for COVID-19?
Well, the BCHL has hired a chief medical officer to monitor COVID-19 safety measures in the bubble. Players will be tested throughout the season if they feel sick or show any symptoms. Back to you.
Airsoft players are upset with the gun legislation that targets their sport. If Bill C-21 passes, it could be outlawed overnight. Reporter Kevin Yee has more.
These guns may look real, but they are actually battery operated and far from lethal. Nonetheless, Bill C-21 may put them on the prohibited list, spelling an end for the sport of airsoft in Canada.
So effectively, it marks the end of the sport. I would only be able to keep these things under my bed.
Airsoft has grown in popularity over the last several years as an activity that emphasizes teamwork, sportsmanship, and fair play.
There's people that I've met over the years, over the last 8 years, that I would have never crossed paths with. And it's just one of those things that you get out there, you have good time with your friends, you sit and you chat, and you just get outside and get some exercise.
There are 2 parts of Bill C-21 that target the sport in the name of public safety. The guns won't be illegal to own, but they can't be bought, sold, or even taken outside of your house. Most of the guns in airsoft will be affected by the bill because they closely resemble the real deal. Many players understand the concerns raised by the bill, but insist that safety is a top priority.
I guess if I were to bring one of these out in public, I would expect and I would hope that the response would be as if it were a real gun, right? That's the level of safety that we treat these devices with.
Across the country, the community has organized to contact MPs and sign petitions. The people involved in the campaign range from casual players to specialized retail stores.
The owner and the people that work here are all great friends of all of ours. And when this bill came out, to be honest with you, this is one of the places and these people were some of the people I thought of first. This is his livelihood.
According to Airsoft in Canada, retailers are not the only type of business that will be hurt by the bill. The movie industry uses airsoft guns, and tourism also benefits from airsoft events.
The bill's still working its way through Parliament. The future of businesses like Trigger is still uncertain, but many in the community are optimistic that changes will be made. I'm Kevin Yee for BCIT Magazine in Richmond.
Today's weather is going to be cloudy with a chance of rain this afternoon. We should see some sun on Friday with the rain returning on Saturday.
Thanks for watching BCIT Magazine. I'm Angelina Ravelli.
And I'm James Parisi. Have a great day.